Hey everybody, Jordan Paris here from Zeus, a company where we build your company's operating system, the brain of your business, on Airtable. We've scaled companies to $1 million and more using these Airtable systems. We've seen what works and what doesn't and everything in between. On this channel, we talk about systems, Airtable walkthroughs, hiring people, everything operations really. In this video today, we are going to be doing a AI automation walkthrough. You're going to learn how to incorporate ChatGPT into your make.com automations. This can work for Zapier as well if you're using that, but really make.com is a more advanced automation tool. And so the specific solution that we're going to be building today is an automation using ChatGPT, artificial intelligence. It will personalize a cold email to send to a prospect. So something very simple that you can adapt to any number of applications. You can take what you learn in this video today and incorporate ChatGPT, artificial intelligence, into any number of automations. If you can think it, you can probably do it. And with me to teach this today, I've invited two very talented people on who you will meet in a minute. So without further ado, let's chat with them. I want to point people to automationunlocked.co. You guys have an automation newsletter there as well. I think there's a link out to the agency side of things as well, where you help people with automations there. Anything I'm missing? Anything you want to add?
Yeah, we also have a membership community platform there, so people can go to automationunlocked.co and they can sign up for a membership. With a free membership, you can access everything. You can download 3 free blueprints a month. So we upload automation blueprints there, things that we find helpful, things that might be helpful for people to learn from. They can go on there, they can download them and upload them to their make.com account.
Yeah, and you guys, I just want to highlight for the viewers that I'm used to saying listeners, I'm used to doing a podcast. Highlight for the viewers that you guys are just really talented. I've seen some of the stuff that you guys make in Make, and no pun intended, that it's really advanced, complex stuff that you as a founder just have no business trying to figure out on your own. Like, you gotta just hand it to these guys. So without further ado, what we're going to do today, as you gentlemen well know, teeing it up for the listeners, we're going to do a little episode, so to say, of build a system. We're going to do a little build a system workshop here. Gents, what do we have planned for today?
Yeah, so for today, we're thinking the best idea to kind of showcase a little bit of what we do in both aspects is to create a cold email generator. This cold email generator is going to use both Airtable and make.com. And we're going to use Airtable as the main kind of interface to interact with this automation.
So what's the use case here?
The use case here would be you have a CRM in Airtable. You have a list of leads that you want to reach out to, but your emails are not customized for them. So you have a bunch of different fields in the Airtable. You have, their first name, their job position, maybe an interesting fact about them. We'll build a pretty basic system today, but this can be advanced and we can include a lot more prompting and interesting things about the specific client that we're reaching out to. But essentially the idea is to be able to create personalized outreach and send that off automatically directly from your CRM. So you don't have to, take all the details, go to ChatGPT, paste everything in, ask it to create an email, copy and paste that back into your email platform and send it out. You can just go into your Airtable CRM, press one button, it'll automatically draft up an email, and you'll be ready to send it out to a client.
Sweet.
So, yeah, I guess let's just get started building. I'll start sharing my screen now.
Perfect.
Let's see. And I've just started up a Airtable base, and this is called Cold Email Generator. I've just renamed it up here, and we'll call this table maybe leads. We're going to start with, this will just be their email. So this is just going to be an email field, and then we'll also capture maybe We'll change this field to be short text. We'll delete these ones because they're not necessary.
Gotta love people that work in Airtable. Well, I'm curious. Let's even just pause right here. What attracted you guys to Airtable? Why do you use Airtable and not like Asana or Notion or ClickUp or anything like that?
Honestly, I think that Airtable is just the most customizable and optimal database when you're working with really anything. I mean, for us specifically with automations, it's the best place to kind of, host things, host data, trigger automations. They have amazing internal automations as well that I know you use a lot in, with your company. And we kind of like to combine both the internal automations of Airtable with external with Make. So we either do that by running a script, triggering webhooks and stuff like that, and it can just be extremely advanced. So I don't think anything else really compares. I don't know anything that, Asana, for example, like that has its purpose, and I think it's great for task management. But I think with Airtable, you can build a task management system, you can build a CRM, you can build a project management system, which I know is all stuff that you do, Jordan. And yeah, it's really just the most optimal for us, and I think for you as well.
Yeah, I'd echo a lot of those same things. Like a better relational database than Notion or ClickUp or any of these other platforms. Or Asana like barely even has, like, it's a superior relational database, which the power of that is like, if you change something here, it also changes there and everywhere else. Everything's talking to each other, everything's connected. And then, yeah, like that's their big thing too. I don't think it's their big tagline anymore. I think their new tagline is like a really weird one. It's like anyone's app. It's just like kind of dumb. It doesn't really hit the mark. I don't like it. But their old tagline used to have to do, I forget exactly what it was, but it used to have to do with like, basically you can do anything with this. Like it's infinitely customizable. If you can think it, you can do it on Airtable.
Yeah, and that's 100% true. We see that as well. And then another two additional interesting things that we like about Airtable are the formulas and the buttons.
Yep.
So buttons will allow us to trigger webhooks, and formulas, it's kind of like a formula in Google Sheets or Excel. However, you can set the same formula for the entire table. So when a new record is added, you don't need to copy and paste that formula down, which is absolutely huge for a lot of the automations that we're doing.
Bottom line, it's just a good place to build your business, the foundation of your business. So what do we got here?
Yeah, so I went through here and I added in a couple fields. I have the email field is the main key field here. And then we have first name, last name, the company they work for, their job title, and then maybe an interesting fact about them. So I'm just going to fill this out with some information about you to get started. So Jordan Paris, Zeus OS. Let me spell that correctly.
Yeah, I was going to say, man.
Job title, founder. AP, give me an interesting fact about yourself.
Yeah, sushi is my absolute favorite food. I had 44 pieces of sushi between Friday and Saturday this past weekend.
Who's counting?
Who's counting?
So
I am, because I like stats, man. I'm in like ESPN, like in my free time, just looking at numbers. I don't really watch the games. I just look at the stats.
It's a fun way to do it. I'm the same way, coming from analytics background. I'm always looking at stats. So this is essentially acting as if it's a CRM. Obviously, with a CRM, you're going to have a lot more information in here. You're going to have a lot more fields, but this is the general information that we would pull from a CRM in order to do this automation. So we have all of the fields in here. The information's populated. And now what we're going to do is we're going to add a button. So maybe we'll call this create email. And we'll just set this to be a button. And the label, we'll make that create email as well. And then we're gonna open up a URL. Now this URL is going to be determined by a specific webhook in make.com. So whenever we click this button, we're going to be sending data to the automation in make.com. And the way that we do that is we just provide a URL right here. However, when we do that, it's just going to kind of trigger the automation. It's not going to necessarily send any data. So the data that we want to pass along is the record ID of this specific record that we press the button on. And so the way that we do that is we use a pre-configured formula. I'll pull in this if and formula I have. Actually, you know what? I'll just pull in just this regular formula just to show you what I'm talking about. So this is what a make webhook will look like. And it's that there. And that there. So the make.com webhook, it's going to have a lot of gibberish in here. This is not an official webhook, and Gavin will give us that URL address in just a minute. But essentially what we're doing here is we're adding a URL parameter that says the record ID. So the record is equal to, and that's the end of our specific URL. In quotes, it's a string, so it has to be in quotes. And then we're using this ampersand to append the record ID of this specific row. So when we click this button, it will send this record ID as the data to this specific automation. So I'm not going to actually, I can create the field, but we're not going to test it right now because it's not actually hooked up to the automation. So I'll let Gavin take over the screen share for a moment, and he can set up that webhook in make.com.
But yeah, we'll make a new scenario, and we're always, you know, a ton of the time we're starting off with webhooks. So some apps have a webhook ready to go. Basically, this means that the data will be received instantly, right? So as you can see, it has a little instant tag here. That means anytime that button that we just made is pressed, it's going to send the data to this webhook. There's also a mail hook, which basically is an email, right? Go ahead.
Never heard of that.
Yeah. So, you know, let's say you want to track a certain email, and every time that email comes in, you want it to send the data right here. We've done a lot of automations where we take data from the mail, from the email, and you know, parse it up, send it to ChatGPT, have it answer the email, have it extract data. You know, tons of stuff that you can do with that. So what we're going to press here is a custom webhook, and then we're just going to add a new hook. So recommend naming this as clear as possible. I can show you after, but our webhook is just filled with kind of nonsense because we didn't start naming stuff and organize.
It's like you cut out for a moment there, Gavin.
What's that?
I think you're back, but it seemed like you cut out for a moment.
Okay, let me know if I'm back.
You were just talking about naming it and how you didn't start naming it for a while.
Yep. Okay. So yeah, name it as clear as you can, because you know we do tons and tons of webhooks, and then as you can see, we have this address here. So we're going to copy this address, and this is what we're actually going to place back in that button. So Tyler has this button here. We'll edit it and put the actual webhook in here.
And by the way, when I like to underscore, highlight things that I think are important. Naming and writing descriptions wherever you can, whether in your automations, whether you're using Airtable automations or Zapier or Make, really helps for when, you know, 6 months later, you have to go in and fix something. You save yourself a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
100%, man. And yeah, so I would save this, and the same thing on here, right? I would be naming this as clear as possible. So, you know, Airtable create email button. And then what we're going to do here, ChatGPT. So like to be as specific as possible when you're going back. And like you said, you're looking and you're like trying to figure out what this one does. You want to be as clear as possible in that title. So yeah, so now what we can do is test and make sure that this is working and our formula is set up correctly in Airtable. So what you would do here is right click, and we'll just run this module only. And now we have accepted here. So that means that our data is coming through. And as you can see, it's sending the record of what we just clicked on, which is amazing. And if you need to verify that, you can either add another record here that's a formula that just says record ID, or you can open this up and actually look in the URL. And as you can see, REC, this is the record ID there. So QT, we're good to go. So the next thing we're doing is we're going to need to get data from this record, right? So we'll be adding an Airtable module, get a record. We use this all the time. Tons of our automations have all the Airtable modules in here. So, and now we just want to make sure that you have a connection in here. You'll probably need to connect Airtable. It's pretty straightforward. And we have a couple bases here, but this is the one we're using. Only have one table in there. And then now this is where we map the record ID from the webhook. So we'll just click on this right here. Press OK. Now, when we run this once, we got accepted. Now, boom, we have the data right in there from Airtable. We have Jordan Paris. We have the interesting fact, and we have, you know, everything in there. Record ID. Sushi is our favorite food.
Sushi is favorite food. Nice.
His favorite food. Yep. You know, it's interesting. ChatGPT does kind of recognize spelling errors. I've noticed a lot of times I like spell stuff wrong, but it still gets it. But anyways, so yeah, now we have the data. It's coming in from Airtable. Every time we press that button, we want ChatGPT to write a personalized email to Jordan. So we'll bring up the OpenAI. We have a lot of these as well in our automations, and create a completion.
I feel like there was a certain point when I was playing with this months ago where GPT-4 was out, but you couldn't yet use it in automations.
Yep.
Yeah, that was the case.
You could use it in automations, but you couldn't use it in this specific module. You had to make a raw HTTP request to the OpenAI API. So it's a lot more complex and difficult to use in automations, but they made it fully available through the Make module. So it's been great.
Yeah, it's unreal. We're using it all the time, like I said. But yeah, so if you don't have GPT-4, you know, you can choose one of the other models. We're using GPT 3.5 a lot, but now we, you know, solely use GPT-4. And so here is where you're going to actually put the content in. So there's different roles here. We always select system first, and basically this is just kind of telling GPT, you know, who they are, what they're doing, and being as specific as possible in here. And then we're going to do another message that's the user role, and that's where we're going to send it the actual content of what it's working with. So I think I have a prompt something here. So we wrote up a little prompt for this. And basically, it's easier to just write prompts elsewhere and then paste it in here. This is not the best way to write it, not visually. As you can see, it just goes off. But yeah, so this is where we always tell GPT kind of what it is, right? So that in this instance, it's a helpful sales assistant. We've said, you know, you're a marketing assistant, you're an operations assistant, you're a VA, whatever it is, being as specific as possible, what it's doing is going to give the best results. So we're saying you're a helpful sales assistant whose job is to write a personalized cold email to a prospect.
Yeah.
We're going to write this email on behalf of me. Go ahead.
Sometimes I find when like ChatGPT, they'll always spit out something in a tone that sounds super needy and low status. So I usually always add a sentence or two about like, yo, like, do not sound needy, come from a high status authoritative place.
I love it.
Add that in. That's perfect. And as we mentioned previously, this is just like a very basic prompting structure. You can get a lot more advanced with the prompts and the information that you give it. And then you can also custom train an actual AI model. So instead of using the OpenAI GPT-4 module directly in Make, we can do an HTTP request to a custom trained model that we've created and train that on previous, you know, successful sales proposals, successful cold emails, and use that information to kind of just help ChatGPT create better responses.
Dude, maybe that's another video. I don't know if you want to give away the house though. How to train your own a model, man, that'd be cool. That'd
be a fun one.
Yeah. Absolutely. But yeah, super cool stuff you can do in here. I mean, we have some scenarios I think I showed you, JP, there's like 100 of these API requests to OpenAI, and it's just all little pieces of super complex automation. But yeah, so, you know, gave it a little bit about who you're writing the email for, what we do, and then you're going to add the user role here, which is where we're going to actually feed ChatGPT the content from Airtable, right? So here is the lead, and then we'll do first name, last name. So now it's going to know.
You'll want to tell ChatGPT what each of those are as well. So make sure you write first name, last name before.
Yep.
Oh, true. That's a really good call out.
Very, very good.
Gotta make sure that capitalization is right.
Yep, big on that. And so, yeah, so that's all the stuff that we're going to feed it so far. You can obviously go way more in depth with this. We've worked with clients who have all types of different data points, you know, when their birthday is, their press releases, awards, crazy stuff that you can use in your cold emails. And so let's test this one out.
So that little bar on the OpenAI module is just showing how long throughout the execution cycle the specific API call is. So it's kind of like a progress bar with no end. The end is when the module is going to time out. It gives you a little bit of a gauge as to how long it's been running or where it is.
You know, I think some other things, let me know if this is possible. I mean, I'm sure it is. I already kind of know how to do it, but you could probably in a prior step before making the email, you could like say you had a data set where first and last name was not separated. You know, it's just had a full name field. You could probably tell ChatGPT, because unfortunately there's actually in Excel, there is a formula for this where you can separate first and last name, but in Airtable, there actually isn't. You could probably task ChatGPT with figuring that out for you. You could also probably, let's say you got a really bad data set, like for really cheap, like makemydata.com. I don't know if you've ever heard of it, but it's really cheap data, really low quality. Sometimes they'll give you a list with like just emails, no names. You could probably tell ChatGPT, hey, guess the name from this email and fill it into this first name field.
Absolutely. And then you could also, you know, take those emails, say those emails aren't verified yet. You could take those emails, you could pass them through a verifier. Another thing that we've done in the past is if we just have like a company list, you can upload the company list to a service like Hunter.io, which will give you a list of leads potentially from there. And then we use ChatGPT to look through each of those emails and their position and determine which would be the best to reach out to for cold email. So just another interesting little addition that we've added to this workflow.
Yeah, but that's the really cool part about using GPT in automations is you can really have it do things that previously weren't really able to get automated, right? Like asking it to identify the name or identify the contact from this email or this, you know, whatever it is that you're giving it, it can actually do things that like a human can do that wasn't really previously automatable. So
before we move on, basically what we're creating here is this like, is this, you know, there's like these services, these SaaS services that like, you know, they say, oh, we use AI to do first lines, to personalize first lines for you. This is basically what they're doing.
Essentially. Yeah, exactly.
And putting an interface on top of it.
Yep. Yeah. So if you've used Bubble.io, you know, you can just use that, have API calls like this in the background, and that's the whole SaaS. And there's tons of them that are doing it. And it's really just leveraging OpenAI API.
Wow.
And we actually did the same thing ourselves. So we built a blog generation platform we built out the entire workflow for one of our clients, and then built out an additional workflow kind of for ourselves just because we were having fun with it. And then we decided to turn it into a SaaS. So we built out a front end on Bubble, and it works pretty well. It's cool.
Yeah.
So the whole software is operated on make.com and Bubble.
Yeah. Now, that's not to say that it's not really complex, because I've seen that automation and it branches 100 different ways, 100 different times. Like, it still requires skill and effort. You know, it's not like people are just throwing stuff up that's like 2-step automations. Maybe they are, but it's not you guys.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I'd say most of those softwares are definitely very complex, but it's just awesome that you can do it no code like this. So, but yeah, so all these little bubbles here, as you saw before, that's where the data is outputted. So you can click into that and see the output. And then if you click on choices, go down to message and content. This is the sales email to you from me. What's that?
We might need to add what's that?
Oh, I just said maybe it's a little long.
I was just gonna say, yeah, that's another thing I always have to tell GPT. It's like I say keep it brief, like, and then I say, you know, maximum like 2 paragraphs or whatever.
Yeah, I think we're gonna need to give it that. Also, I don't know what it's saying here. Your innovative approach towards blockchain and decentralized technologies.
Yeah, I think we're gonna have to tell it, don't make shit up.
Yeah.
So I think that's because we didn't tell it a whole lot of information about Zeus OS. So it's just coming up with what its idea of Zeus OS is. And that's where we can really dial down the prompting and dial down the actual Airtable interface to provide a bit more context. So for example, one thing that we could do is we can add an API call. We take the company name and we just Google that company name through an API. And we retrieve the first 5 results. Then we can look through those 5 results and we can determine which would best match the company that we're looking for. We can grab the content from that website, use ChatGPT to summarize it, and then we get a brief little summary of what your company does. We can feed that into the Airtable and just provide better responses. So for the sake of today, I think, if we just add that on the Airtable, maybe tell it to be a bit shorter. And then, all of those other things that we discussed are definitely things that we can add in the future. And then the last thing would be to just add it back into Airtable after it's done generating. So everything stays right there in Airtable and nobody ever has to see make.com.
Yeah. This is great right here, guys. This is hilarious.
Interestingly, your fondness for sushi reminded me of the artistic precision that goes into making a good sushi roll and how the craft of sushi aligns in different ways with what we stand for, bringing intricacy, precision, and efficiency into every operation. Well, that's relevant to me. Not unlike the sushi chefs perfecting each detail in their creations. That's great. Nice.
Yeah, I mean, it's over the top for sure, but it is
over the top. Yeah, dude, that's another prompt I always use. What I use in my prompt, I'm like, don't be over the top. I always say that because it is over the top.
It is. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, so you play around with that prompt and get it down and get it looking good. But let's just show real quick how to actually throw this in here. So looks like we have a field here, email script. We'll just add another Airtable module. And we'll update a record. Or should we upsert, Tyler?
We can just update.
So upsert is helpful if you're in a situation where you want to either update or create. So we do use that a lot as well. And then we'll just grab the record ID from the get a record there. And for the email script, we will map in GPT's response.
So you go much further with this. You could pull out the specific subject line. You could have ChatGPT write the subject line separately from the actual body of the email, and then feed those into different properties within Airtable, just so that you can feed those into the actual email platform better. But this is the general concept of how this automation would work. Yeah,
so just wanted to add that in there.
Perfect.
Now let's run it and let's see how we do. So we can look at the background here. GPT always takes a minute, always takes the longest.
Yeah.
Sometimes we've had such insane prompts that it'll just time out in here. So, you know, gotta keep that in mind, gotta keep token limit in mind, stuff like that. But boom. So now if we go back in here, here it is. So shorter, which is
Two
great.
very long paragraphs, but much
Very
shorter.
long paragraphs for sure. But it didn't make anything up this time, looked like, right?
Yeah.
It kind of said the same thing with the sushi.
Nice.
But yeah, I mean, it did a pretty good job. We didn't give it a ton of information.
I would reply to this email. I would reply if someone had that about sushi in there, 100%. I don't know how they'd find that out, but
Yeah.
they'd have to like parse my YouTube videos or something and figure out that I like sushi. Is there a
Our
way
goal?
to do that?
Helping businesses unlock their full potential, much like a well-crafted sushi roll. I mean, yeah, pretty good. And then it's got my signature in there. I mean, we didn't give it a ton of information about me. We didn't give it a ton of information about you, and it was still able to whip this up. So not too bad. But yeah, that is just one little example of some of the stuff we do with Airtable and make.
So to wrap this up, we don't have to spend another 20 minutes doing this, but how would you then go about sending the email? Would you feed this into a smart lead or instantly? If so, how would you even do that? I know how you could do this in just Airtable automations. You could then have a separate button that's like send email, or as soon as that field for the script is filled in, then it will automatically send the email, and it can send it from, you can connect your Gmail account to Airtable, so you can send it from your Gmail account. So I've actually created before, a long time ago, I created like a sending system similar to Instantly. I created that in Airtable with Airtable automations. Really simple, actually.
Cool. Yeah, the reason that we did it this specific way was because if you do it this way, where you're creating the email and then you're selecting a separate button to send it, it gives you the ability to edit the email in the meantime, make sure there's no mistakes.
Right.
So you could create an interface. The interface could show, generated scripts. You could go through each script and then have another button that you click that sends the email. And essentially the way that we would do that is we would want to make sure that the subject line is separate from the body of the email. So we would probably duplicate that ChatGPT request and have it create one subject line and one email.
Yeah.
And then whenever they submit the button, it would be the same workflow that we did for this one. So, another webhook to make.com. And then we can just use the Gmail module. So they would just connect their Gmail, and then we would just map the subject line and the body to the subject line and the body. And then whenever they click the button, that specific email would send out to the sender address.
Yep. And we have done other automations where you can upload this to a platform like Smart Lead or a cold email platform, right? So we like to build out interfaces, take it one more step, and really, focused in on this record, have them able to edit up this copy and then press a button, and then that can also make a post request to Smart Lead or Instantly or, Snov, whatever it is that you're using. Put that in there and start a campaign. So maybe you have this initial one, you already have follow-ups in there. Maybe you want the follow-ups personalized, generate in here as well. Tons of stuff you can do. But yeah, if an app does not have a module on here, so for example, Smart Lead, I don't think has a app, then what we do is make HTTP requests. And so, you can make a basic request, OAuth 2, just make a request. And then this is where you need to actually go into API documentation and read it and follow it, because they're all different, right? So it's all relatively the same thing. They'll give you a URL endpoint that says, add to Smart Lead campaign, add to Instantly campaign. You'll post, which means send the data there, and then it'll tell you more directions on what to put in these specific parts, normally an API key, the data you're sending, stuff like that.
So if you guys, the viewers, want to learn more about how to do automations, I'd highly recommend subscribing to Gavin's YouTube channel. I think he's building that out. He's got a couple videos. He's doing pretty well. He's been pretty successful with the few videos he's put up. Tyler, I don't know if you have a channel, do you?
I do. Yeah.
I'll put them both in the description of this episode so people can find it there linked.
Oh, thank you.
And then you mentioned Airtable interfaces that you might build on top of here. That's something that I actually plan to do a video about, really all things Airtable. I'm kind of building out that library right now. So if you're watching this video and you're not already subscribed to me for Airtable and general operations content, definitely do that as well. But bottom line, we're all good people to subscribe to. Also, if you got value, throw a like on this video. And then if you're not looking to learn automations, you just want to have these guys do it for you and figure it out for you, go hit them up at automationunlocked.co, I think /agency. Is that right?
Yep, absolutely.
Sweet.
Did you learn something today, JP?
I actually did. Yeah. I'm not the automation expert. Like a lot of people try to put me in that automation box, like I told you, and I'm just not. Like, I'm the general Airtable agency systems, right? We'll build out your project management system, your learning management system, the stuff that you need to scale, but not like these custom automations that are really complex and you've got to be really smart to figure out, like you guys figure out. So I actually figured out how to build AI automations. Like I actually didn't really know how to do that. It's not my specialty. Yeah.
Well, with your kind of background and understanding of operations, I think that this would come easy to you, and I think that you're definitely capable of learning all this stuff. So isn't anybody?
Do I want to? No. Yeah, that's why I send clients now to you.
Yeah.
So
exactly.
Yeah. Anyway, guys, thank you for being here today. Anything else you want to add to wrap up? Are we good?
I think that's it. Thanks for having us. It was fun, and I would love to do it again sometime.
Cheers, l'chaim, as they say in Hebrew.